Hi, this is Krista at The Secret Yarnery. Today we are making these easy crochet Christmas stockings. You will love making these stockings so much. We work from the top down. I'll show you how to do a super easy heel. Just working back and forth, no stitching or anything crazy to do. You will love doing this heel. The toe is also a super easy decrease. There are not very many tails to sew in. We carry our yarn up on the inside of our stocking, and also our seam carries down nicely straight along the back and straight underneath the foot, so nobody sees that seam when your stocking is nicely folded. There is also a hanging tag for hanging them up. It's absolutely finished by the time we're done. And I'll show you 3 different edges. I'll show you how to do the flat edge, the scallop edge, the icicle edge, and you can just pick how you are going to finish them off so each of your stockings can be individual. If you want to follow along with a written pattern, it's available over at my website, secretyarnery.com. All my written patterns are written in plain English, so you don't have to know how to read a pattern to follow along. It is actually just following exactly what I'm saying in the video, but on paper form. For these stockings, I used 3 different colors of ice yarns. I used Saver and Saver 100. They're both 4-weight worsted acrylics, just in the standard Christmas colors. You will also need a 4.5mm crochet hook, a 5.5mm crochet hook, a pair of scissors, and a darning needle, plus 1 stitch marker. If you don't have the 4.5 and the 5.5mm crochet hooks, you can use a 5mm and a 6mm. So let's get started. So grab your smaller hook, your 4.5mm, and your yarn. Make a slip knot any which way you normally do. Shrink it down and put it onto your hook and chain 41. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 40 and 41. So there is my chain 41. Lay it out flat. We want the pretty V's facing up. We don't want any twists in that chain. And then just kind of roll it around so it's a full flat circle. We want to look for that very first stitch. So right on top of our knot, we want to go in just to the bottom part. We want to get 2 strands of that stitch on the top of our hook, right there. So just put your hook in, 2 strands of that stitch on the top of your hook, and we're just going to slip stitch to join. So just grab your yarn and bring it through both of those stitches to join. And just check that your ring is not twisted. We want that nice pretty braid all facing the same direction. And chain 2. 1, 2. Now going into that very same stitch where we just joined, right here, we're going to go into the same spot, and we're going to do 1 double crochet. So put your hook into that very same stitch and make 1 double crochet. Now we're going to work into each of these chains, going all the way around. Just into that bottom part, we always want to get 2 strands on the top of our hook. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3. Every single chain is going to get a double crochet. So 1 double crochet into every chain, working your way around. So you can pause the video and keep working around, 1 double crochet into each chain, and I'll meet you when we get back to where we started. When you get close to where you started, make sure you get into that last chain. And now count your stitches to make sure you have 41. Our chain does not count as a stitch in this pattern. We're just counting our double crochets. So skip over that chain, and we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 40, and 41. We're always going to have 41 of these double crochets for the first part, for the leg of the stocking. And now we're going to slip stitch right to the top of that very first double crochet. So we're ignoring the chain, and we're going to go into that top of the first double crochet. Just put your hook in and slip stitch to join. Now we're going to drop our tail. Just kind of hold it along the back of your work and grab your next color. Put a loop on your hook and bring it through the loop you have, just like that. Snug down your green tail and hold that behind. Drop your new tail and also hold that behind. And chain 1. Just get that all snugged down again. And now we're going to go right into that very first stitch, right here. That's where we're going to make our first stitch. So put your hook into the very first stitch and make 1 single crochet, and 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way around. 1 single crochet. So pause the video and keep working your way along, 1 single crochet into each stitch, and I'll meet you when you get back to where we started. When we get back to the join, make sure you go into that last stitch, 1 single crochet. And now we're going to slip stitch to the top of the first single crochet to join. So we're going to slip stitch over here. Pop your hook in and slip stitch. You want to do a tight slip stitch, so I'm using a lot of tension on my yarn. 1 little slip stitch, and now we're going to drop the red tail and pick up our green working yarn. Just like that, and bring it through. Snug down the red. Snug down the green, and chain 2. 1 and 2. We started the last round into the very first stitch, so this round we're going to skip the first stitch and work into the second. So wrap your yarn and into the second stitch, 1 double crochet. So we jumped over that first stitch right there, and now we can put a stitch marker at the back side. It doesn't have to be into a stitch. You can just use your stitch marker to remind yourself that for this next row, you're going to have to put your double crochet into that chain stitch, just to remind yourself, because we skipped to the first one, so we're going to know to put it in at the chain. But I'll show you that when we get there. So for now, 1 double crochet into each stitch. So pause the video and keep working your way around, 1 double crochet into each stitch, and I'll meet you when we get back to where we started. So back at where we are joining, we go into that same stitch we always have, the last stitch before the chain. And now we're going to go into the same stitch. There's a little tiny one right before the chain. We're going to go in right here and make our last double crochet. Just like that. And now we're going to slip stitch to the first real double crochet right over there. So we're just going to slip stitch. We're always ignoring our chain, and we're always keeping 41 stitches for our double crochet round. So into that very first stitch, right there, slip stitch to join. Just like that. So now we're going to drop our double crochet yarn and pick up our single crochet yarn. Bring it through, snug your green yarn down and hold it, just like that at the back, and chain 1. Now into the very first stitch, right here, 1 single crochet, and 1 single crochet into each stitch going all the way around. So our single crochet row doesn't change. We just alternate how we start or finish our double crochet round. So pause the video and keep working away along, 1 single crochet into each stitch, and I'll meet you when you get back to the join. So 1 single crochet into each stitch, ignoring that little bit where our chain started, our little chain 1. We don't go into this stitch right at the chain, we ignore that one. Just into this last stitch right before. And now jump over into the top of our first real single crochet and slip stitch to join. A nice little slip stitch. Hold your single crochet yarn down along the back. Grab your double crochet yarn. Bring it through. Snug down your single crochet yarn. So it's nice and flat, and chain 2, 1 and 2. We did the last round skipping this first stitch and working into the last by the chain. This is going to keep our seam going nice and straight and not on an angle, so it's going to really hide nicely on our stocking. So now we're going to work into that very first stitch. So I'm going to move my stitch marker over. Just move that stitch marker up and put it on the other side of your chain for the next round. That's just going to tell us what we're doing ahead. And now we're going to work into that very first stitch. So right here, right at the bottom of our chain. So wrap your yarn and into that very first stitch, 1 double crochet. And now 1 double crochet into each stitch. So now pause the video and keep working around, 1 double crochet into each stitch, and I'll meet you when we get back to where we joined. Back where we joined, I'm working into that last stitch. So now I'm going to slip stitch straight to the top of that double crochet to join. So slip stitch to the top of the real double crochet to join. Drop your tail, pick up your contrasting tail or your single crochet color and bring it through, snug it down, and chain 1. So our single crochet row is always the same. We just go into the first stitch and 1 single crochet into each stitch going all the way around. We can move our stitch marker up and we can just put it on that stitch we did right after the chain. That might help us keep track of it as we work our way along. So now pause the video and keep working your way along, 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way around, and I'll meet you when you get back to close to where we joined. Back at the join, I'm just going to slip stitch straight over into that first single crochet right over there. So slip stitch into the first single crochet to join. Nice small little slip stitch. Drop your tail, pick up your other yarn or your double crochet color, bring it through, snug it down, and chain 2, 1 and 2. Now I went into right after the chain in the last round, so I'm going to skip that stitch. I'm skipping this stitch right here. I'm going to work into the second stitch. I'm going to jump to this stitch right there. So wrap your yarn into the second stitch, 1 double crochet, and 1 double crochet all the way around. So pause the video and keep working right along, 1 double crochet into each stitch, and I'll meet you when we get back to our join. At our join, we have our last stitch left. So 1 double crochet into that last stitch, and now we have our chain. We skipped after the chain, so we need to go in before the chain, right here. So we're just going to alternate our rows, doing the same thing. So into the same stitch as that chain, 1 double crochet. That gives us a nice tight join, and alternating where we put that double crochet is really going to help our seam stay nice and straight, and we're going to be putting that along the back of our stocking, just along the center of the heel. So when it's hanging on your mantle or wherever it is, you won't be seeing this join at all. We're doing the same thing underneath the foot, so we're always hiding that join, and that's how we're going to be keeping it straight, is just by alternating putting our double crochet before or after the chain. So slip stitch to the first double crochet to join. And now we can move that stitch marker over into that double crochet we just made after the chain. Just there. And start your row of single crochet. So now we're going to keep going, alternating doing a row of double crochet and single crochet. And for our double crochet rounds, we're going to be alternating where we put our first double crochet, either right after the chain or right before the chain when we finish. So pause the video and keep going. We want to keep repeating this pattern until we have 11 rows of double crochet. So right now we have 4 rows of double crochet, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So pause the video and I will meet you back when you have 11 rows of double crochet. So this is 11 rows of your double crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And our seam is heading up nice and straight in the middle of our work. slip stitch to join the top of that first double crochet, and chain 1. Now go ahead, cut both of your yarns. We can knot these ones. You can sew them in or you can knot them. I'm just going to knot these two. So pull your hook up and your yarn through, inside it out a little bit so we can see our yarn. Take your crochet hook, put it underneath this loop, same direction as our other yarn, and grab your double crochet yarn and bring it through. That just gives us a spot where we can secure it. And now just make your regular knot. So knot it once, this one not too tight, and knot it again. That one really tight. If it starts to slip, do one more knot and then pull it. And of course, you're welcome to sew in these tails if you want to. This is going to be right near our heel, so we're not really going to feel it very much. So you can just cut those tails off. The other two tails where we started, we're going to have to sew in with a needle because we'll be able to see that from inside our stocking. It'll be right at the top. So we want to sew the two tails in. Now we are ready to start our heel. So we want to get our seam lined up again in the middle, in the center of our leg panel. Get your stitch marker handy. We have our chain here. If you can just wiggle your fingers in to find this chain. This is going to count as a stitch for our heel. So this is going to be 1, and we want to do 10 on each side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. That one right there, I'm just going to put my hook in. And then not counting the chain, I want 10 on the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and there is 10. I'm going to put the stitch marker into that 10th stitch. So it's 21 stitches altogether. The chain 2 suddenly counts as a stitch, so 21. If you're doing a different circumference, a different stitch count, you want the number to be divisible by 3 and approximately half the width of your stocking. So now grab your heel color. I'm going to be using white. Put a loop of yarn onto your hook, 10 stitches on the other side of the chain, and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just holding it along the back of your work, and chain 1. So all that counts as your first single crochet. So into the next stitch is number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11 is going to go into that chain. 11, 12 into the next, and all the way up to 21. 19, 20, and 21 where we had our stitch marker. So that was just to make sure our math was proper when we were doing our first row, and that is 21 single crochets for the first row. Chain 1 and turn your work. Now we're going to go right into that very first stitch right here. And we're going to do 14 single crochets, 1 into each stitch. So there's our first 1, 2, 3, 13, and 14. To start row 3, chain 1 and turn your work. Now we're going to do 7, and we're starting in the very first stitch. Right there. 7 single crochet, 1 into each stitch. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's what it looks like. Chain 1, turn your work. Starting in the very first stitch, this row has 8 single crochets. So I'll show you what we do at the end of the row. So there's 7 across the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And now we're going to jump down into this first empty single crochet way down there. So use a bit of tension, snug up on your yarn, put your hook into that next single crochet in the first row, and make 1 small single crochet. Just like that. So there's our 8 single crochets for that row. To start the next row, chain 1 and turn your work. Now 1 single crochet into each stitch along the top and 1 single crochet into the next empty one down below. So into our very first stitch, 1 single crochet and 1 single crochet into each stitch along the top. So this row will have a total of 9 single crochets. Remember, you always have to go into this stitch. It's a bit weird. It's on a hill, but that is our last stitch of our little plateau. And then once we're at the edge, we jump down. So our 9th single crochet is going right down here. So 1 little single crochet. Chain 1 and turn. So we're just going to keep doing this over and over until we have 2 stitches left. So if you are an experienced crocheter, you can pause the video or just keep working ahead. And if you are new, I'll do the entire heel with you. So into the next stitch, 1 single crochet and 1 single crochet into each stitch along the top part of this heel, along the hill. 1 single crochet into each stitch. And remember, this at the edge here, that is a stitch. There we are. Now we're going to jump down into that single crochet at the bottom and make 1 small single crochet. So that always ends our row. Chain 1 to start your row, turn your work, and 1 single crochet starting in the very first stitch all the way along until we reach the end of our hill. So starting the very first stitch, 1 single crochet and 1 single crochet into each stitch. Remember to go into that last stitch on the edge. The edge is going to be really, really straight when you're finished with it. And now find that stitch at the bottom, the next empty single crochet, and 1 single crochet, like that. Chain 1 and turn your work. Into the very first stitch, 1 single crochet, and 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way along the top edge, including the last stitch on the hill. Into that last stitch on the edge, 1 single crochet, and now the next single crochet at the bottom, 1 single crochet. So we're just doing 1 extra single crochet at the edge of each cliff. Chain 1 and turn, starting in that very first stitch, 1 single crochet, and 1 single crochet into each stitch all along the top of our hill, including this last one on the edge. 11, and into that last one, 12, for our nice straight edge, and then finding that first single crochet in the bottom row, 1 single crochet. chain 1 and turn. And now starting in the very first stitch, 1 single crochet, and 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way along the top edge, including that last stitch. So there's my last stitch into the stitch right at the end. And now look for that next single crochet that's empty, and 1 single crochet down below. And you can see that's giving us a nice heel already, a nice little shape starting. Chain 1 and turn your work. Now the same thing, starting in the very first stitch, 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way along, including the one at the very end. So there's 14. We're going to do our 15th stitch into that next empty single crochet down at the bottom. And we're going to keep doing the same row back and forth all the way along until we just have 2 stitches left. So if you have more than 2 stitches, just keep going. So into the next empty single crochet down below, 1 single crochet, chain 1 and turn. So I'm going to repeat that again, 1 single crochet into each stitch, including the one at the end, all the way along this top edge. There's 1, 2, 3, and 15 into that last stitch on the edge. Now we can count our stitches. We have 3 stitches left. So we're still not done. There is 1, 2, and remember our slip stitch and chain 1 counted as a single crochet. So we have 3 stitches left. So we're getting close, but we're not done yet. So we'll keep going. So this is the same, 1 single crochet into that first stitch, chain 1 and turn your work. Now 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way along, including the last stitch at the end. So there is 1, 2, 3, 15, 16 into that stitch right on the end. Still more than 2 stitches down there. So our last single crochet into that first empty single crochet at the bottom. Chain 1 and turn. And the same thing, 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way along, including the last stitch at the end. So 1, 2, 3, 17 into that last stitch at the edge. And now we have 2 stitches left. So that is great. So into the next empty single crochet at the bottom, 1 single crochet. And now into the next stitch, so that's our chain and our slip stitch. We're just going to go right into that stitch and make 1 more single crochet. 1 single crochet. So that finishes up the fancy bit. We are just going to turn our work without chaining. And we are going to start not in the very first stitch, which is right here. We're going to start into the second stitch. So into the second stitch, 1 single crochet, and 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way along, including the last one at the end. So we've done 1, here is 2, 3, 18 is into that last stitch. And now we're going to do our single crochet into that next stitch we always would be working into. So 1 single crochet. And now into the next stitch, right here, we're just going to slip stitch. So 1 slip stitch into the next stitch. Just like that. Chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. Now go ahead and sew in these 2 tails. When you're heel is complete, we are ready to start our next row of single crochet. We're going to use the same color, so whatever color you are using for your single crochets. And you want to fold your stocking so that the seam, our join, is along the edge and your heel is folded in half. Now at the top of our heel, we want to find the center stitch. You don't have to count it, we just want to like eyeball it. We want it to line up with the join we already have going on. So the join, and then just find that stitch. And we want to be working from the outside to the inside. So put your hook in the same way that I just did. Loop of your single crochet color on your hook. Bring it through, slip stitch with both strands to join, and drop your tail. Chain 1. That's going to count as our first single crochet. And now 1 single crochet into each stitch along this heel. Just 1 single crochet into each stitch. So now we're going to make stitches along this edge. There is 1, 2, and 3 we're going to put right in between the legs of this first single crochet, right down here. And that we're going to do a decrease. So just put your hook in between the legs of that stitch and bring your yarn back. And find the first stitch of your stocking, not where you've worked into with your heel color, but the next one over, the next empty stitch, and put your hook inside, bring your yarn back, wrap your yarn, and take off all 3 loops. So that is a single crochet decrease right in that corner. And now 1 single crochet into each stitch. So you can pause the video and keep putting 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way along until we reach our heel area. So right before our heel starts, we have 1 empty stitch left. So I'm going to do my decrease again. So I'm going to put my hook into that last empty stitch, bring my yarn back, and put my hook in between the legs of that next stitch. Right there. Bring my yarn back and wrap my yarn, take off all 3 loops. That is a decrease. Now we're going to make a stitch somewhere in this area. Just put your hook in and make 1 single crochet. And now we are back where our stitches are. So 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way along the heel, working our way back up to where we joined. So same as we always have, slip stitch to the top of that first, so just slip stitch into that area and drop your tail, grab your double crochet color, loop of yarn on your hook, bring it through, drop that tail, pinch down your single crochet color. You want to really get that nice and tight. Pinching it and chain 2. 1 and 2. And now we're just going to be doing our double crochets. So I'm going to work into the first stitch. As best I can. And 1 double crochet into each stitch all the way along until we get to that same little corner. When you reach this corner, we want to go into the stitch, the last stitch of the heel and the first stitch of the stocking, and we're going to do a decrease. So wrap your yarn and go into the last stitch of the heel. Bring your yarn back, wrap your yarn and take off 2. Wrap your yarn again, go into the next stitch, grab your yarn and bring it back, wrap your yarn and take off 2. 3 loops on your hook. Now you're going to wrap your yarn and take off all 3 loops. So that is a double crochet decrease. And now 1 double crochet into each stitch all the way along until you reach the heel on the other side. So when we get close to the corner, I'm going to find the 2 stitches that are closest to that corner, 1 and 2, and I'm going to do my decrease there. So I have 1 more stitch I can do regular. So 1 regular double crochet. And now I'm at those 2 stitches. So I'm going to start my double crochet into the first stitch, grab my yarn and bring it back, wrap and take off 2. And I'm going to start my double crochet into the next stitch. Bring the yarn back, wrap and take off 2, wrap and take off 3. And now 1 double crochet into each stitch, all the way up until you reach where we joined. When we've gotten back up to where we joined, just wake your slip stitch into the top of that double crochet. And switch yarns. So drop your double crochet yarn, pick up your single crochet yarn, bring it through, snug it down, and chain 1. Now we're going to be doing the exact same thing as we did before. So we're just going to be doing rows of single crochet, 1 into every stitch, and then rows of double crochet alternating how we start or end, just to keep our edge straight. And we're going to keep doing that so we have 6 rows of double crochet. So pause the video and I'll meet you when you have 6 rows of double crochet done for the foot. So now we have our 6 rows of double crochet for the foot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now we can just cut our yarn. And with our green color, or the double crochet color you're using right now, chain 1 and just pull that through and snug it down. Now you want to sew in those tails or knot them. This is right by the toe, so I'm just going to knot mine. And easiest way to do it, put your hook in to one of those loops, same direction as your yarn, and grab the yarn you just finished to bring it through. That gives you a little loop to tie on. And just give it a little tie. 1 loosely, 1 tightly, making sure it doesn't slip. If it slips, tie it 1 more time before you pull. Now let's open it up flat again so our seam is running down the middle of our stocking, and we're going to grab our heel color again. Same hook. So now just pick a stitch near that join. I'm just going to go into the stitch right after that chain 1 we just did. So pop your hook in and loop of your heel color yarn or your toe color yarn on your hook. Bring it back, slip stitch with both strands to join and drop your tail. Chain 1. So this counts as our first single crochet. Now 1 single crochet into every stitch. So now just pause the video and keep working around 1 single crochet into each stitch. I'll meet you when we get back closer to our join. So back at the join, I'm going to put a stitch into that chain, just so it looks nice around the edge. And now we're going to go right in between the legs of that first slip stitch we did, right there. So pop your hook in, and we're going to make 1 single crochet. So 1 single crochet, that is our join. And now grab your stitch marker and just pop it into that single crochet that you just made. We want to mark where we're starting our row. And now for the second row of our toe, we are going to do 5 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then into the next 2 single crochets, we're going to do a decrease. So we're going to start our single crochet in the first stitch, leaving it on our hook. Start our single crochet in the second stitch, leaving it on our hook. Wrap your yarn and take off all 3 loops. So that's what we're going to do into our 6th and 7th stitch. So 5 single crochets by themselves. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then a decrease into the next 2. So start your single crochet, start your second single crochet in the next stitch, wrap your yarn, and take off all 3. So now pause the video and keep working along, doing 5 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and a decrease into the next 2. all the way around until we reach back to where we joined. When you approach your stitch marker, don't worry if it's lining up exactly. This is just a marker of where we're going to switch what we're doing. So now to start the next row, we are going to do 4 single crochets and then a decrease. So we're just reducing the number of single crochets by themselves. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a decrease. Starting the first, starting the second, and taking off all 3 loops. So for this round, 4 single crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a decrease. Starting, and taking off. So pause the video and work around till you get back to your stitch marker, 4 single crochets by themselves, and then a decrease. So approaching that stitch marker again, the next row is going to change to 3 single crochets by themselves, and then your decrease. So 1, 2, 3, and then your decrease. Just like that. So pause the video and go around this row, doing your 3 single crochets by themselves, and then a decrease into your 4 and 5. Now for the next row, we're going to do 2 single crochets and then a decrease. So 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets, and a decrease. 1, 2, take off together. So continue around, 2 single crochets and then a decrease all the way around, and I'll meet you when we get back to the area of the stitch marker. Now for the next row, we're going to do 1 single crochet and 1 decrease all the way around. That doesn't even take that long. So 1 single crochet and 1 decrease all the way around, and I'll meet you at the stitch marker. Now for the next row, we're just going to do decreases. So every 2 single crochets go together to be 1. So into the first, into the second, wrap and take off all 3 loops. So now we're just going to keep rolling our stocking around and going into each of these 2 stitches until our toe of our stocking is very, very small. Eventually, it's very hard to get your hook into that tiny little hole. So that's probably the last one I can do. So now chain 1 and cut your yarn. You're leaving a long enough tail, we have to sew that one in. Pull your hook up and thread your needle. Oh, and we can take that stitch marker out. You might want to put your hand in your stocking so you make sure you don't sew your stocking together. So from where our yarn is coming from, I'm just going to go across to the other side. And that kind of pulls it together, and go back and forth a couple times. Just across that opening. You don't have to pull too tight. You want it to look a little natural. And now we can just sew in our tail. Back and forth a few times, and that is nice and shut. Cut your tail. And there is our cute little toe. So say goodbye to your smaller hook, your 4.5. We want to be using our 5.5 for the cuff. And we're going to start by chaining 16. So make a slip knot and chain 16. 1, 2, 3, 15, 16. So lay it flat so all those pretty stitches are facing up, the cute little V's. Roll it around, and we are looking for our very first stitch right here, our very first chain. We are going to put your hook in there and make 1 slip stitch. 1 slip stitch. So this is going to be a little hanging loop for hanging your stocking. Now we chain 41. 1, 2, 3, 38, 39, 40, and 41. So lay your chain out again nice and flat. Bring it around to the top. Now we're going to slip stitch again. I want to slip stitch into that very first chain. So I'm going to slip stitch right here. So put your hook in and slip stitch. And then just check that you don't have any twists in that last ring that you made. Chain 2, 1 and 2, and now into the very same stitch where we joined, that same chain. Wrap your yarn and make 1 half double crochet. So 1 half double. Wrap your yarn and 1 half double into the next stitch. And 1 half double into each stitch all the way around. So every chain is getting 1 half double crochet. So you can pause the video and just keep working along. 1 half double into every chain, and I'll meet you when you get back to where we started. When you get back to where you started, it is a bit messy looking. So roll it around so that it is making sense. Ignore our hanging tag, that's just going to be in the way for a while. But roll it around so your stitches, the top of your stitches, match the other side, and your chain will also be lining up. And now keep going in 1 half double crochet into each stitch, or into each chain, all the way along. So there's my last stitch right there. And for this cuff, we want to be adding stitches per row. Our chain count is perfect to match our stocking, 41, but now we can start adding stitches. So I'm going to put a stitch right after my chain, and I'm also going to put one right before. So I'm just going to go in anywhere really where that chain is and make 1 more half double crochet. We're just going to add some size. Now we're going to slip stitch straight into our first real half double right over there. So still ignoring our chain. Slip stitch to join. Chain 2, 1, 2. And into the very first stitch, right where our chain is, we're going to put a half double crochet. So we're going to put a half double right after our chain, and we're going to put one in right before the chain. So we're just adding a stitch. So you can pause the video, 1 half double crochet into each stitch all the way around, starting in the same stitch as your chain, and just working around 1 half double crochet into each stitch, and I'll meet you when we get back to where we started this round. So getting back to where we joined, still 1 half double into each stitch, and then into that stitch right before our chain, also 1 half double right into there. Slip stitch to the top of the first real half double to join, so just ignoring our chain 2, like always. Slip stitch, chain 2 to start the next round, and 1 half double into that very first stitch, the same stitch as the chain. 1 half double, and now 1 half double into each stitch all the way around until you reach back to where we started. We want to do this for 2 more rows. So go ahead, pause the video, and do the same row 2 more times, a total of 4 rows. When you've finished your 4 rows, slip stitch to the top of the first real half double to join, like always, and chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we're going to skip these first 3 stitches. So we're skipping where the chain comes from, we're just ignoring that, and then we're going to skip 2 more. We're going to go into this stitch right here. So wrap your yarn and into the 4th stitch, 1 double crochet. Chain 2, skip 2 into the 3rd, so we're skipping 1, 2, going into the 3rd, 1 double crochet. chain 2, skip 2, 1 double crochet into the third. Chain 2, skip 2, 1 double crochet into the third. So you can pause the video and keep working your way around, doing a chain 2, 1, 2, skipping 2, and making a double crochet into the third stitch all the way around, and I will meet you when you get back to where we started. When you get back to where we started, it might be 2 stitches, it might be 3, but just skip it all. So chain 2, and we're going to slip stitch to the third chain. So here is 1, 2, we're going to slip stitch to the third chain to join. So 1 slip stitch, chain 1, and cut your yarn. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down. You can go ahead and sew in these tails. So the first one I'll show you is this scallop edge. Just put your hook in to one of these little windows where your hanging chain is, the same area as your hanging chain, just into one of those windows, and pick the color from your single crochet. Of course, you can do any color you like, but I choose the color that I just had a little bit, my highlight color. So for me, that's red. Loop of yarn on my hook, bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop my tail. I'm just going to hold that along my chain there, and chain 1. Wrap your yarn and 1 double crochet into the same space. Wrap your yarn twice, 1 treble crochet into the same space. Wrap your yarn once and 1 double crochet. Wrap your yarn and half double. So that is our little scallop. Drop your tail now. We'll have to sew that in with a needle later. So here is the repeat for the scallop. 1 half double crochet, 1 double crochet, 1 treble crochet, 1 double crochet, and 1 half double crochet. Jump straight over into your next window and do the same. So half double, double, treble, double, and half double. So if you're doing the scallop edge, pause the video and keep working your way around, and I'll meet you when you get back to where we joined. So to join the icicles or the scallops, we are going to slip stitch right into that first chain we made, just at the bottom there. So you're just going to go in and slip stitch. Chain 1, cut your yarn, pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down, and sew in your tail. To do the flat edge, put your hook in to any window space near your hanging tag. Loop of your accent color or your single crochet color yarn. Bring it through, slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail holding it along the edge of your work, and chain 2, 1 and 2. 3 double crochets into the same space. 1, 2, and 3. Drop your tail, jump straight over into the next space, the next window, and do 4 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now you're going to do 4 double crochets into each window all the way around until you get back to where you started. So 4 double crochets into each window space. There's 2, 3, and 4. 4 double crochets into each window space all the way around, and I'll meet you when you get back to where you started. If you did the flat edge, then you will just slip stitch to the top of that first real double crochet, just one little slip stitch. And the same, chain 1, cut your yarn, pull it through, snug down, sew in your tail. To do the icicle edge, the icicle edging, put your hook into any window space near your hanging tag. Loop of your accent color yarn on your hook. Bring it through, slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, holding it along the edge of your work, and chain 2. 1 and 2. Holding your tail along your work, make 1 double crochet. Make 1 treble crochet. And now we're going to picot. So chain 3, 1, 2, 3. And we want to slip stitch into this back loop of our first chain. So we can see, if you roll your chain to the side, you can see these bumps. There is 1, 2, and 3. We want to put our hook right in and get that back loop. So slip stitch to the third back loop to join. 1 little slip stitch, and 1 more treble crochet into the same space. Wrap your yarn and 1 double crochet into the same space. Drop your tail, and now this is the repeat for the icicle. 1 half double crochet, 1 double crochet, 1 treble crochet, 1 picot, 1, 2, 3, so chain 3, and slip stitch to that first chain, the back loop of the first chain, 1 little slip stitch, and 1 treble crochet into the same space. And we finish with 1 double crochet. So start with a half double, then 1 double, 1 treble, 1 picot, 1, 2, 3, slip stitch to that first chain, turn your hook, there we are, 1 treble crochet, and 1 double crochet. So now pause the video and keep working along doing your icicles, which is half double, double, treble, picot, treble, and double crochet into each space all the way around, and I'll meet you when you get back to where you joined. So to join the icicles or the scallops, we are going to slip stitch right into that first chain we made, just at the bottom there. So you're just going to go in and slip stitch. Chain 1, cut your yarn, pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down, and sew in your tail. You can put your big hook away now, go back to your smaller hook, your 4.5 millimeter, and we want to line up the back of our stocking, where our seam is, with the hanging tag area of our cuff. So put the stocking inside the cuff, lining up our back seam with our hanging tag. Let us check for where our join is and put your hanging tag in the same spot. And just kind of keep that pinched together so you know where it is. Grab your hook. And now I'm not going to go into the stitch right after the hanging tag. I'm going to skip that one. I'm going to go into the second stitch and also into the stitch of the stocking. So we have one loop of our cuff and one loop of our stocking. And we're going to use our cuff color to join. Loop of yarn on my hook, bring it through, slip stitch with both strands to join, drop your tail, and chain 1. So that counts as our first single crochet. And now we're going to go in to each stitch of our cuff and grabbing the same loop of our stocking. So we're going to make one single crochet into each pair of these stitches. So into the next stitch, one single crochet, and one single crochet into each pair of stitches. So this is how we're joining our cuff onto our stocking. So just take your time, work your way along, getting your cuff and your stocking, one stitch of each, and one single crochet to join. So you can just pause the video and keep working along, grabbing your front stitch of your cuff and the back stitch of your stocking and making one single crochet into each all the way along until you get back closer to your hanging loop. Getting back to our hanging loop, just keep working along into each stitch that you can. And when you get to this little guy here, we can still go into that one, but we're not going to do a single crochet. So grab that tiny one and the matching stitch at the back and just slip stitch. Slip stitch into that one. Now we're going to go into our hanging loop somewhere in the middle. You're just going to push your hook in and you're going to grab something at the back as well. So into the hanging loop and out your stocking. Just take your time like that and also slip stitch. So bring the yarn back through. Slip stitch. We want some extra strength because the weight of all of the stocking is going to be hanging on that loop. And now into our last stitch. We left this one on purpose. We do our last single crochet. There. And now we can slip stitch or do an invisible join. If you're going to slip stitch, go straight into that first stitch there and do a slip stitch. Chain 1, cut your yarn, pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. Sew in your tail and you're absolutely finished. So if you want to do an invisible join, instead of doing our slip stitch, go ahead and cut your yarn and pull your yarn through that last single crochet we made. So just pull your yarn all the way through it. Take a needle and now we're going to go in where we would normally slip stitch, but we're just going to be using our needle instead of our hook. So go into that first stitch where we would have crocheted into and bring your yarn through. We want to be keeping an eye on where our yarn is coming from, the center of that single crochet. So just bring it through a little bit and now put your needle back down where it came from. Just like that. And now snug it up so it looks like a stitch. There. There is our invisible join. Now go ahead and sew in your tail and you're finished. You can also sew in your tail back and forth with your hanging loop just to reinforce it a little bit. And you can do that with both tails. And there is our cute little stocking. All of it is so adorable, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I'd love to see yours. You can tag me over on Instagram at Secret Yarnery or Facebook, The Secret Yarnery. We also have a crochet group over on Facebook, The Secret Yarnery Crochet Community. Great place to upload your photos and ask questions. Tons of amazing crocheters over there. And thank you. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell beside that so you don't miss out on any more awesome tutorials just like this. Thanks so much for hooking along. We'll see you in the next video, and stay hooked.